Thank you for joining us here today for our roundtable discussion. Before we get started, I would like to talk a bit about ourselves. We are the Summernet Youth Network, which comprises of young people who are part of Summernet in different ways, including the scholarship program, project grants, network, and the secretariat. We work together with Summernet to engage young and early career researchers, and the network aims to be an interactive platform for advancing research and understanding of environmental challenges in the Mekong region. So we are organizing various networking events, seminar, panel, trainings, and workshops to exchange knowledge and learning among each other. So before we get started, I would like to introduce the organizing team and the panelists. So as for the participants, there are so many of the participants, so I would like to request to introduce about your name and where you're from and what you do in the chat box. So for the organization from Myanmar, and I'm supporting with someone at communication component. So let me invite Pen.
My name is Pang. Hi everyone. Very nice to see you all, and I think there's a number of people register, and I hope we will have a very fruitful discussion. And my name is Pang, and I'm from Vietnam, and I'm supporting the research team in Summernet. Nice to meet you.
So may I invite Sophia?
Yes, hello everyone. My name is Sofia Cavalleri. I am a joint PhD candidate at SCI Asia with the Policy Analysis team and the Chulalongkorn University.
So may I invite May for introduction?
Hi, sorry about that. You guys are complaining about background noise, so we'll speak louder. My name is May Ao, and I'm a research fellow at SCI.
So may I invite over Baribat? Baribat, can you hear me?
Yes, hi, my name is Baripat Labelle. I'm a research coordinator based at Chiang Mai University.
And do you from Village?
Sorry,
Yes.
sorry, what did you say? Oh, okay.
Hello everyone, my name is Pornmilai Suki. I'm a Summernet Fellow. I'm from Laos. Yes, thank you.
And may I introduce with our panelists? So let me invite Charlotte. Charlotte, can you hear me?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Charlotte. I'm a research associate at SCI Asia, mostly looking at urban issues. Thank you.
And may I invite Pim?
Hi, good afternoon, everyone. My name is Pimonporn Jintalit. Currently, I'm a project manager at Yunus Thailand Foundation.
Thank you, Pim. And may I invite DA?
Hi, everyone. I'm Thierry Bartpuria. I'm a research associate with SCI Asia. I'm working with the water cluster. Yeah, glad to see you all.
Thank you, DA. And finally, let me invite Quan.
Okay, hi everyone. My name is Quang. I come from Vietnam. Currently, I'm a PhD candidate from Con Ken University. Nice to meet you all.
Yes, thank everyone for your introduction. So without further ado, let us proceed to the presentation. So the first presentation is by the Charlotte. Thank you.
Sure. So I'll share my screen in a minute. Can you see my slide?
Yes.
Okay. So once again, welcome to this session, and I hope we can have a really great discussion at the end of it. So my presentation is about mobile research methodologies. Particularly, I'm going to talk about how we employed mobile research methodologies in a research project with waste pickers in Bangkok. And we specifically used one mobile research methodology called Walk Along. So I'm going to just explain what these different things mean and how it helped us and how innovative was it in this particular context, but also maybe you can think more broadly throughout the presentation, how it can perhaps help you in your areas of interest. And one thing I would like to clarify at the very start is that Walk Along is just one of the many mobile research methodologies. So of course, you can think about how these concepts can be applied in your topic rather than really thinking about the content from my presentation. So a little bit about the project that I'm going to be talking about. So we tried to research the salengs of Bangkok. So saleng is the word for waste picker in Thai. And we were trying to understand how we can ensure a sustainable transition for informal waste workers to become key managements in the circular economy, because waste workers already are contributing in waste collection and sorting waste, right? So how can we ensure that the barriers that they currently face can be addressed? So this was the motivation. Sorry, my throat is not doing great right now. So I will also talk a little bit about how it was complementary to other methods. So we did not only do walk-alongs. One thing to remember is that we did also surveys with other focus group, other target groups. So our target groups were not just the salengs, we worked with households and waste aggregators also. So an important thing to also keep in mind while they're discussing the different research methods is how it can complement other kinds of data that you might collect, right? And how it can address specific questions that you have in your research. So in this particular case, I think the walk-along was really helpful in understanding the social barriers and the spatial barriers that salengs face in their work. So I'll talk about this in the next slide. So we'll only be talking about the walk-along now, but I just wanted to say that we had a design which had other methods, and we did 3 large surveys in 2 districts of Bangkok in order to reach the research conclusions that we did. So what is a walk-along? So a walk-along is a mobile research methodology that is used in social sciences. A mobile research methodology is anything that recognizes the movement of people, the importance of space, right? Because people are constantly moving, and how it shapes their experiences and how it can enable them to relate to their environment. So walk-along is just one of the many mobile research methodologies, and it's also called as go-along or walking interviews. Now, in a walk-along, you simply, as the name implies, it is obvious that you're just, as a researcher, you walk along with your participant of interest. And there are 2 research methods kind of at play within the walk-along, right? Because you are interviewing them, but you're also observing, because you are in the environment. You're also doing a participant observation and trying to, have a more interpretivist approach if you are more interested in the research philosophy. So it is definitely more on the interpretivist side than the positivist side. So this interview component that I was talking about, it can be either structured or unstructured. So I mean, I would say that for a walk along, it is, you make the more out of it, the less structure you use, because I mean, again, I'll talk about this later, but it's up to you to use an unstructured or semi-structured interview in your walk-along. Another point to keep in mind is that the walking route that this particular method employs, you can either, again, design it based on your research questions and objectives, but it can also be determined by the participant themselves. So we use this particular method called natural walk-along, in which the participant only decides where they are going to start their walk, where they're going to end it. Because the objective was to really understand how they work and where do they work, and how do these mobilities in turn shape their experiences, and in turn, has some relations to understanding plastic recycling. So getting into the research and what we found, this is an excerpt from our fieldwork notes. So Noi is, we have renamed the name of our participants, but Noi continued to collect waste by removing the waste packed in the black bags and laying them on the floor. Then she used her hands to rummage the waste put on the floor with no fear that something would hurt her hands. Most of the waste that Noi got were plastic bottles in small boxes. But despite the hot weather, Noi continued to tirelessly collect waste. At the same time, the data collector stood and observed Noi's waste collection with an umbrella. Now, I would just like to structure the rest of my presentation by saying why I think the use of this method was really appropriate in our research. First of all, a sit-down interview takes time, and very often this is working time from participants. So waste pickers usually just walk along and rummage through every street, like the previous quote had implied. And if you stop them in a particular instance, or you ask them to come to your office for the interview, or you just make them sit down in a particular public space, even, you are kind of taking time away from them, from their working life, right? So I think by design we have this responsibility also to minimize these kind of risks that we pose to the subjects. So I think walk along kind of gives you one solution to do it, as long as the participant is still okay with you, taking you to these spaces of their everyday, and it could also be their intimate spaces. So as long as the participant is okay with it, it gives you a solution to that kind of a issue that you might face in your research. So this actually comes from my previous experience where I studied street food vendors. So that's the image from that project. And actually, I realized that once we were interviewing a lemon soda vendor, so he takes his cart and he actually walks through all of the city to sell lemon soda. And then because of the interview, he was trying to be polite to us, and he just stood at this particular spot, and we were going on talking to him for 1 to 1.5 hours. So at the end of the day, I then realized that, well, we actually, took time away from his work, because only when he walks, he can attract more customers. So it really came from that kind of experience. And the next particular pro that I see of this method is that the power relationship between the researcher and the participant can be quite strict in a formal setting. So that's why I've added this very dramatic imagery, because sometimes it feels like you're just meeting somebody and then you're asking them really personal questions. So it feels very intrusive, and it can be a bit awkward. So what we found that the walk along actually provided some space for establishing that rapport, right, and that trust between the researcher and the respondent. So you can see a couple of quotes from our fieldwork here. So the data collector began to help Boone to find the trash, telling her where there were bottles to collect. So he was just not, there with the purpose of collecting as much data as possible in this 1 hour. It was also about helping her with the trash. He picked up trash along with her. And oh, sorry, I forgot to mention that this work was done by Natokon, who was a research assistant, and we are really grateful for his contribution, because his work was really, really helpful. And then the next quote also talks about how the waste picker reminded the data collector to be careful of the car, as the data collector used a mobile phone to jot notes along the way. So I feel like, because you're walking with this person, it's not just about your research anymore. And I told you, right, the interview can be unstructured or semi-structured or also structured. In our case, it was largely unstructured. We cannot call it semi-structured even, because we just asked him to, ask things like, oh, how is the weather? Really casual questions. The reason for it, again, I'll come to it later, but I think it gives you that space to actually interact more freely and not be very confined to the objectives that we assume are, or the issues that we assume are their issues, right? The third point that I see as beneficial is that it gives you an in-depth experience and understanding of their lived experiences. So we also did a survey, like I told you earlier, and we also had a lot of open-ended questions in the survey. So it was not just numerical survey where we're asking all these number questions. But when you compare those responses and this, for instance, it was really personal, because they would point at their house, and then which was next to a dump site, and they would tell them their experiences of chronic poverty in a lot of cases, and they would talk about their loans that they had to pay back and how much stress it's causing them and so on. It just, because of the time you put into the research, I think you also get a more in-depth understanding, I would say. And then the relationship between people and places, I think this is the point I was going on, hinting at, that I will come to this point, why should it be unstructured? It's really because I think a walk along is useful, because the space in where you are acts as a prompt for your discussion. So sometimes in interviews you might use a picture, or for instance in a photo voice, you take a photo and then you ask them to talk about it. So you might use other prompts when you don't have a list of questions, right? So in this particular case, the space you are at acts as a prompt. So we could really see how the kind of data that were collected was really influenced by the space in which the interaction takes place. For instance, they would often point at communities and houses where they are allowed, or they would say that, oh, in this house this guy accused me of being a thief, so he wouldn't let me enter, and then the community blocked me, the security guard blocks me, and you can really see these kind of societal barriers, because when you're walking with them, they have these really strong associations and memories to the space they are at. And of course, you also know which spaces are more accessible to them. For instance, they were talking about, there's this washing machine here, and this person collects waste for me here, so I can collect it later. I'm also going to check the time. And then the final advantage is that please, the organizers can let me know if I'm running out of time. But the final advantage is that it definitely aids a lot of personal reflections. We were thinking a lot about the inequalities in the research, in the way research is structured itself, so between the researchers and the participants. And Natakon was saying that, I don't have to ask them everything. I can understand why they're doing certain things on the field when I'm working with them, because he was saying that they would not really stop and collect at the front of occupied houses because they feel like they might be chased away, or when there is a heavy traffic in the street, they will not collect there based from that particular area because the traffic police can chase them away. So these kind of insights were observed by Natakon on the field when he was working with the waste pickers. And also he was saying that I've never thought that trash is so valuable. And once you see the kind of work that goes into it and the kind of value that plastic can create, he says that, okay, every time I look at a plastic bottle, I think of, that this is valuable. It's not trash to me anymore. So a word of caution here would be that as with any research method, you would use the method after you think it's appropriate to answer your research question. Also, you need to really think about ethical review here, because it should be ethically appropriate. The participant should be okay with it. And I think that applies for any method, but especially when you go to these spaces that are intimate to them. And might affect their day-to-day work experience. So just be a bit more careful, and also ensure the safety of your researcher and the subject, and of course ensure anonymity and all of these other things that apply with any kind of research. And another thing is we have to remember that we have an option to enter and exit as and when we want. So just be a bit more respectful and think about these things, ethically before you would use such a method. And then finally, of course, because we are emphasizing the role of space, right, in this particular kind of research method, we can, of course, map the routes that are walked, and then you can, do some spatial analysis along with the qualitative analysis and quantitative analysis, maybe. But then this should again be decided on a project basis. Is it safe to disclose the location? For instance, in this particular project, if I map the location and the working route, because it can be an illegal occupation. There might be threats to these waste pickers that can be posed as a result of it. So I just have to think a little bit more about these ethical deliberations a lot more, I think, in this innovative research method. So I also wanted to talk to you about other applications that you can possibly use this kind of principles in. So this is from another project that I worked on. It's called the City Health and Wellbeing Initiative. You can look it up on the SCI website. So we're trying to understand how urban spaces affect the health and well-being of its residents. And what we did in this particular exercise is we gave the participants a wearable. As you know, like a wearable can measure different indicators like heart rate variability, which is what we did in this context. And then we can see how the stress levels of the participants varied in a park as opposed to a market setting. And of course, it was highest in the railway crossings and the highways, So we try to emphasize the role of urban green spaces for reducing stress and for overall well-being of residents. So in this case, as you can see, the transect, we really wanted the participant to go in a particular route, so it was set by the researchers themselves. These are my references, and the key message I would say is that space and movement of people have been ignored for most parts, but I think these are very important dimensions of data collection. So thank you.
So if you have any other questions for the Charlotte, please leave a message in the chat box. So for next presentation, let me invite Pim.
Can everyone see my screen and hear me? Hello?
Yes, we can.
Okay. So hi, today I'm very happy to share my knowledge and experience on Facebook advertisement, as I have been used as a tool for my survey data collection. Okay. So before we go, I would like to ask any of you, like as a researcher, were you impacted by COVID-19? Was it destroy your plan for data collection completely? Is there anyone who got that impact?
Yes.
Yes, me
Yes.
too. Yeah, me too. So it's destroyed my plan. And anyway, on the bright side, I have been exploring another tool. It's got me to learn more about Facebook advertisement. But due to the limitation today, I might not be going through all the technical aspect, but I would try to demonstrate the potential of Facebook advertisement and as well as its limitations. So why Facebook? From the statistic, you can say that like in the past 6 years, Facebook user has been increased exponentially. It's reached 2.8 billion of global users, which is very high comparing to the total internet user. And from the statistic from US, it suggests that Facebook has ranked number first for the people that comparing to other social media platforms that they most like used per day. And these are the top 10 countries in terms of audience size that have been using Facebook. And this top 10, 6 out of this are from Asia Pacific. So based on this statistic, it also like suggests us that Facebook has a very big database and from many different countries from around the world. And what is Facebook advertisement? So you usually see like content with the word sponsor, and this content are not from the people that you are following or you are not friend with them. So basically this content were paid to be shown on your page. Usually for the marketing purpose, it can be shown like in the middle or on the sidebar. It can be like other positions as well. And this is like example from the phone interface. It can be contextual picture content or even the video content. And when can we use Facebook advertisement for our research? First, it could support us in disseminate our questionnaires online. For example, this like the advertisement content where you can embed the questionnaire link here. And when people click it, it will link to your questionnaire that you have provided. Second, with Facebook advertisement, it can sort of compare the messages and how people can react or engage to each message differently. And this is suitable for the social intervention campaign where you want to test the pilot test project. Third, it can also support the behavioral research that you can sort of understand the preference of the target audience better. Fourth, it can evaluate the trend, leveraging the big data. So basically with a large set of data from many people around the world, you can also sort of see the trend. And what are the benefits? First, Facebook advertisement is very convenient. You just need like one laptop and you can disseminate your questionnaire and you can like conduct data collection. And it has like very fast converting rate. In my case, sometimes I even get like more than 100 respondents per day, which is very quick comparing if myself go to the field alone. So yeah, I would say that is also like alternative option for the field work, and you don't have to like go around begging people to complete your survey. Third, it can lessen the selection bias. So typically, when researchers would like to conduct an online survey, they usually send to their peers or their friends, their networks, which can be subjected to some selection bias. But with Facebook advertisement, it can put your questionnaire out there to the real populations. So it can lessen this issue. Fourth, it can reach out to the wide target audience, as it can reduce the geographic barrier. So you basically can launch your questionnaire into multiple countries at the same time. This is very budget friendly. From my experience, I can sometimes get like around 30 cents US dollar for one respondent, which to me is quite cheap comparing if I have to conduct like real field survey. And what are the limitations? So first, I think this one is very important, that because the result that you generated from this tools cannot be generalized to non-Facebook users because they are like different. Also, you cannot observe the physical behavior and reaction of the participant toward your question. Third, there are also some possibility of measurement errors because you have no control over how people interpret the question, and sometimes it can lower the quality of the answer as well. And last one is the questions are preset, so you cannot have like prompt question or follow-up question for your research. So maybe it's not flexible in that sense. So what is suitable and what is not? So from my experience, I found that it's very suitable for the quantitative research, where you need like a large set of data, numerical data, like Likert scale data. And it's also like supportive for the specific target participants that cannot like be easily identified on the street. For example, if you would like to target pet owners, I think it's hard to identify who are the pet owner and who are not. But with Facebook advertisement, you can also set up the preference or the personal record that they have historical record of purchasing pet accessories or they're owning the pets. And what is not recommending is that it might not be all suitable for qualitative research for like unstructured or semi-structured interview, because as I have been mentioned before, you cannot have like follow-up question or prompt question. Everything is preset, and it is not very suitable for observational research, of like quite obvious. Okay, so like a few tips. First, I would suggest us to understand about the target audience, like who they are, their gender, their age, the location of living, in order to have the very precise targeting in order that you don't have to go through all the like question screening, because if you don't target right, you might have to like the quality of the data might not be the way it's supposed to be. Also, you should keep monitoring the result, because on the Facebook, when you launch it, they will have the management page where you can see like how each advertisement is going, and sometimes it doesn't run properly, and you have to revise that and monitor that. Third is you have to be aware of Facebook terms and conditions, because it can be like constantly changing from time to time. So be sure to be on top of it. The last one that I really would like to highlight it, because I consider it as the most important, that you should learn about the basic concept of the Facebook advertisement before you have your hands on it. So in my case, I have been recommending to read this book. It is in Thai, and sorry I don't get any commission from the publisher. But anyway, yeah, I would like to say that you should at least understand the concept. It can be from the book, or it can be from the internet, like YouTube. You can search for Facebook advertisement tutorials. It's like many sources, because like I would like to ensure that once you start doing it, you can maximize the benefits of Facebook advertisement based on the money that you spend, so you don't waste your money for free. Yeah, and that's it for me. Thank you very much.
Thank you. The presentation very interesting, and I'm sure it will be very informative for everyone joining here. So thank you very much. And next, let me invite DA for his presentation.
Okay. I hope everyone can see my screen. So hello everyone, I'm Dev Bhatpuria. So I'm going to present something on like how to use the web-based tools, mainly the geospatial tools for the water research. And this includes a lot of the case studies that we have done within the SEI Asia as a partner or as a sole owner. So, oh, sorry. Yeah. So what exactly geospatial technology means? So it relates to anything that has data related to location, that is collection and processing of data that is associated with location itself. And basically, like geospatial technologies includes three aspects. That is, one is GPS, that is which is the global positioning system, which collects your latitude, longitude, locational data, maybe through the GPS itself or through cell phones these days, smartphones as we know. And second is the remote sensing, that is mainly like we know it as the satellite data or maybe UAVs or other source of data where we are not in direct contact with the area of interest. And third is the GIS, which is the information system, which enables you to organize the data itself in form of maps and arts and represent your data sets. So all of these three together are known as geospatial technologies. Usually, like whenever you are touching on one of that technology, you usually deal with the other two. So usually it's clubbed together. So these are the this is the basic about the geospatial technologies. You can see the figures below that shows the same. The left one is basically someone doing the survey, basically collecting the GPS locations. There is satellite data in the middle, and something like on the right you see as can be considered as a GIS. So how do you access the geospatial data? So geospatial technologies have existed since a lot of years. By a lot, I would say in terms of technology, a lot of years, that is almost 20, 25 years or maybe 30 years. So previously there used to be a dominance of the desktop softwares like you would say Israq, GIS, NVIDIA, even now QGIS and all. And then there are like web applications which you have to build, getting the professional web developers to develop your own web application once you have your research done and you have some outputs to showcase to the world or to the stakeholders. So there has been existing open layers, Leaflet.js, CCM, and other forms of map-based representation of geospatial data. Also, since a few years, maybe I'd say more than a decade, we also have a dominance of data as services, that is in form of Google Maps, Apple Maps, Here Maps, and OpenStreetMaps, which you see as wherein the data is the service, where you see the data, geospatial data in form of maps and GIS on your smartphones and other platforms. So these are the mainly, we would say, more of the conventional technologies that has been existing since many years. But recently, since I would say recently, like 4 or 5 years, there has been dominance of platform as a services, wherein I would give you an example of Google Earth Engine, then Open Data Cube, and the most recent kid in the block is the Microsoft Planetary Computer, which allows you to process your data directly on cloud or web-based processing, so that you don't have to worry about having desktop softwares or build a web application from scratch just to display your data. So we are going to touch more about the platform as services in this presentation in form of case studies. So what basically I mean by web-based platform and what are the characteristics? So basically you don't need a big computer. By that I mean that you don't need a very powerful computer to run this kind of services or this kind of applications, where like previously you used to need at least like 32 gigabytes of RAM or more than that to just process few data sets, which is not required anymore. You can just do it directly on your browser, maybe Chrome or any other browser directly. And then like you can scale up your area of interest, since most of these platforms use the data from cloud, and you are just connecting with the cloud platform through this. So you can easily increase or decrease your area of interest. You can select a small town and maybe even your country, or even you can do the global processing by just increasing the area of interest, keeping your code as it is. So that's the beauty of this. And definitely because of this, you don't have to download a lot of data, which takes really a lot of time. So you just can do easy data management. All your data sets are lying somewhere in a very structured format. So you don't have to look around for your data and all. It is just about like just accessing it and processing. And in many cases, also a lot of free data sets are available within this platforms itself. That makes it easier, as I mentioned. Like you don't have to download like 1 gigabyte of scene just to process small city area data. So yeah, and also they have a good advantage of being easily shareable. So you can easily share your links through links of your processed data or maybe even your code itself. And it's easy, like anyone in your team can easily contribute into it. And that also leads up to reproducible research. So once you have your outputs ready and you are at a stage of publishing or after publishing your research, you can easily share that script links, and anyone anywhere can easily reproduce our research, making it more authentic and help you out further. So these are the basic characteristics of web-based platforms. Now I'll just directly jump into a few case studies. First, I'll show you 2 of the applications that has been built completely using such web-based applications. Mainly here, I'll be talking more on Google Earth Engine, which is widely used these days. So I'll just touch up more on that. And so the first application or the case study that I want to talk about is the river morphology. And this is basically developed for Irrawaddy River in Myanmar, which faces a lot of high riverbank erosion during the monsoon season, which leads to a lot of land loss, especially the agriculture as well as property, and also leads to displacement of people. So we developed a tool which can monitor this riverbank erosion every year. That's annual erosion, or you can say seasonal erosion. And for this, we used a 30-year data for the whole river stretch. The river stretch itself is like 3,000 kilometers long. So we processed all that data sets, and we generated the changes in the riverbanks for each and every year, and also led to the estimation of how much land is lost and how much land is gained, where it is lost and where it is gained. So I'll just show you a case study here. So I already have the link open with me. Yeah, I hope you can see my screen and the link. So I've just kept it open. So like you can see the whole river stretch here. This is the whole Irrawaddy River. And maybe you can just zoom into some specific area. And as you can see here, like there is, you can see for year 2019, like how much is the riverbank changes. Like erosion means that that much area has been eroded from 2018 to 2019, where there is deposition along the river. And over administrative units, I think it's better to see them. So, and then you can just draw a transact and see how much is the actual change in the river width. See, so this is like how much has the river width changed at that specific transact location, to showcase like how much is the bank erosions, and that can be helpful to the stakeholders to take the decision on how to use it. So I'll just quickly jump to my next part. That is similarly, like we have also developed. Okay, this is the methodology of the tool. I'll not go into detail into that. Now there is a Mekong Drought and Crop Watch. So similarly, like we also did it a similar tool for Mekong Drought and Crop Watch. It's a big tool which uses both the modeled products as well as the Earth observation products, and all of them are cloud-based processed to make it really quick and fast. And it can be only for the regional as well as it's local, the drought itself. So and it's basically a decision support tool that we are seeing. It's a very complex framework, consists of a lot of data sets, a lot of different inputs and outputs, but it's actually used by the stakeholder. You can see it here, like this is the page, and Yeah, so you can just observe the data sets, like how it is changing. So this is like a complete decision support tool developed using these web-based platforms for the stakeholders and for the local governments to just visualize what are the changes in the country or in the region or within any administrative unit. What are the different outputs? So this is how like web-based tools can shape up in the end of the day and as a user input. So third is the rapid flood assessment that I would like to share. So till now I just showed you like how to like develop the full tool set where you can't see the script itself, but this is a simple example that I have just want to showcase to you, where we can study the changes in the or maybe the flood extent for the specific region of interest before pre-flood and post-flood sea condition. This is useful for emergency response and rapid assessment. So yeah, I'll just share the links later on with you guys. And yep. So this is mainly I've just did it for Mandalay region in Myanmar, and dates are somewhere in the last year. There was flood, so these were around the flood dates. So whatever you can see in the blue was actually flooded areas. So this is if I just reduce it, like this is your before flood, this is how the image looks. But after the flood areas, you can see all the areas that is black is basically the waterlogged areas. So you can easily map out the waterlogged areas, and as you can see, we quickly mapped out within just some seconds, and it just displays. Also, you can display the areas, and this was all based on some few 30-40 lines of codes. Just it's a very simple code which you can just generate. This is kind of the scripts that you can easily write and just generate, which usually takes a lot of time if you are using your traditional geospatial softwares to do it. And yeah, the fourth is the agricultural water assessment, where, as you know, the water is one of the main inputs for agriculture and for the cropping system. So here, like, we are trying to measure what are the water requirements for each and every point location within the map area. And here the inputs are soil moisture, evaporation, evapotranspiration, rainfall, as well as vegetation condition. Here we have used the multi-criteria decision analysis. And I'll just show, I've already run it because it takes a little bit of time. So as you can see here, like you can see all your inputs, like how precipitation is classified into categories of from red to green, where red means low and green means high. Similarly, you also have, this is the evapotranspiration, same, red to green. And then there is a soil moisture, and this is also red to green. So wherever there is red, there is a high need for soil. The soil moisture is low, as green indicates soil moisture is high. And similarly, this is the vegetation index, MDVI. So this results into an agricultural water stress output. This is a very experimental output for now. But as you can see here, like the blue indicates the regions where you don't need so much of agricultural water input right now, but red is the one where you need agricultural water input. Right now, I have not used, I've not extracted only the agricultural areas, but that would help further on further steps. So you can just zoom in. So zoom in, zoom out, and also these are the sample points that are taken just to see the correlation between the different parameters, that is NDVI and evapotranspiration, NDVI and precipitation, soil moisture, and NDVI. What is the relationship between them for different regions? So as you can see here, this is a very scalable application. So you can just change this to even a small, your district, or maybe your province or country, or maybe your region or continent. It will process it for you. So these are the kind of processes which you can do using the cloud-based or the web-based platforms, which helps you in developing the tools and which can be used in your research as an input rather than using the traditional technologies. So this is kind of innovative tool which has been catching up a lot these days, and I hope many of you would be already aware of it. But it holds a lot of potential. And yeah, this is just a general slide, like how Earth observation data, the geospatial data plays a role in different SDGs. So you can see this is the like how they are targeted and what are the indicators. So maybe it will touch up also into one of your research areas, and maybe I would really you will feel motivated after this to use it if you're not using it. Yeah. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you very much, Lee. It's very interesting, and these things are really powerful, which can really support our work. And I really like the fact they are web-based and no need to use very high-end computers or laptop. So thank you very much. And may I invite Coin for the presentation? Thank you.
Okay. Okay, let me share my screens. Okay. Everyone can see my screens, right?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. Okay. Let me introduce myself a little bit. My name is Quang. I come from Vietnam. Currently, I'm a PhD candidate from Khon University. My major is information science. My research is really focused on knowledge management. Yeah. Also, I also like gender equality platform intern from Stockholm Environment Institute. Today, I'm very happy to share my experience about how to visualize the data and understand in the context of gender inequalities. Yeah. And this is my presentation structure. First of all, I would like to share the general understanding about data and what difference between the data and information and the data visualization. And the next step will be identify what are process for us. And I will propose some like general tool and type of data visualization. And last one is one case study about how to visualize the gender data from my fieldwork, and it also like recommend some tip and recommend some the software how to use it for sharing and analyze the data. The first question I would like to propose here is what difference between the data and information. It's a really like academic question. It's very big question in information science. In general, it's data is just mean it's like the figures, number, and it's like sentence also. But the data, the information just means the data we put together in the meaning ways. Okay. The data is in the basic level of the information, and from information we go to another step. It is your knowledge. Okay, we have two steps: is data, information, and knowledge. But in this session, I would like to give the really brief definition about data visualization. It's a one process. I mean process to visualize elements and like graph, bar chart, line chart, map, to tune to make everyone can understand about the trend, understand about like what is the data saying, and what are the like the researcher would like to share to the audience, something like that. And it's a really basic project for data visualization. Based on my experience, before we do for visualize the data, we should go to first step. The first step is you should be identify who is your audience. Yeah, and for example, if your audience is the researcher, you should be identify the structure of the data. If the audience is like the general people and the people from the school, something like that, you should be structure the data in different way. And what are the type of decision does your audience make? And it's a very important step. If you are like identifies wrong identify for audience, your data is not like visualized and it's not true for everyone can see and understand. Yeah. And we are moving to another step. after you identify the audience, you should choose like the right chart. I mean, the chart is the one type of like I mean the characteristic to visualize the data. You can solve with the chart user, and it's either a line chart, bar chart, it is type or something like that. And after you identify concrete like right chart, you should be use what software and what as a tool program, appropriate software in order to analyze, in order to visualize the data. You should know the difference between the data analyze and data visualize. Data analyze is to make the data, you can get the point and you can get the information from the data. And data visualization just means it's like the process to give everyone can understand from the data. For example, you are studying PhD, you get the data from the field. And you rest one time, you can understand what is the data from your research understand, but another people, we're not sure as another people can understand what you are saying about. The very important thing is you should be visualize the data for everyone can understand. And last one, last step I propose here is a data presentation. Data presentation is like one like it's not final step, it's like very important step to frame your visualize and to with customer colors and to put some sentence. It's like to some sentence to explain what is the data talking about, something like that. This is very general tool, the type of data visualization. We have a lot of kind of the tool and types to visualize data. For example, here we have chart on table. Chart is we have line chart, point chart, we have map, something like that, and we also have graph. Yeah, and right now, you know, for that data sharing, the people from like the scientific people, they understood how, and they get more option to visualize data. And next slide I will show what are the proposals, some software how to visualize data. And now, you know, for general speaking, we really like to use infographics. Infographics is like it's like combination of many data into 1 or 2 pages, and this can be the summary of the program project and some proposal also. And its last one here is the type of the data visualization is dashboard. Normally, it's dashboard we are using for online visualize the data. The dashboard, for example, Power BI is one strong software we are using for dashboard the data. And here, for example, here is like one dashboard and is concerned also number of some main statistics about one's country. They are using many kind of tape to visualize data. You have line chart and bar chart, something like that. And it's a more specific example about the method to visualize data. We have the range of the method. For example, we have area charts, bar chart. Some, you know, for the research we have quality and quantitative data, right? Sometimes people would like to present and visualize the quantitative data, but sometimes people would like to present for the qualitative. For qualitative, we have, for example, the wood cloud and the timeline and tree map, something like that, to visualize how the people understand about the data. And on the other hand, the people also use like smart tricks, histogram, and network, and a popular area, something like that. Yeah. And this is a general software I familiar and I use for my work. To be honest, I didn't know all of this software. For example, Python is not my strong one. I'm still study about that, but we have it's depend. Like I said before, it's depend who is your audience and what are the objective of data visualization. For example, we have Power BI. It's a very strong tool for economic data analysis. I really familiar with this, and we can use it to analyze the data on the dashboard, and we can export this into the report. And we also have another tool is how can I say, the turbulence. Yeah, it's all very strong tool. And we have really famous software is in the Microsoft Excel. To actually Microsoft Excel is very strong tool, but we can use it. But normally for research field, the people highly requirement for another software. For the Python is also very famous software to analyze and visualize the data at that time. And another one for geographic analyze, like DA said before, it's like GIS, GIS like geographic technology to get the period to get the data from GPS, something like that. Is I also familiar with this. And now for another software for social, it's really famous for social research is the SPSS. And let's the rest one we concentrate the software for qualitative research. We also have some general software like NVivo and LRTA, and I will show some. I will show here some analysis from my slide. Okay. Okay, continue, right? All right. Right now, I will share like the data visualization in the one case study for gender inequalities. The first one, let's say before, we should be identify the roles of the data. Another one is the raw data, where it raw data from. And when we get when we get the data, like we should be think about how do you collect data, how do you clean the data, and when we identify the tool, you should be get the idea for how to use the software to analyze. And in here, I propose some software to visualize the data, the Power BI, Python, GIS, and another one. Yeah. And in here is some like some graph I did before in order to compare the population between male and female in the gender fields. For example, it's like the percentage of total population by gender in Vietnam is 5 years. And another one is also the same. No, it's not the same. It's like the percentage of population by gender by age group from 2015 up to now. Okay, and another like another way to visualize the data, we use the map. You can see here is the point. Is a point. Actually is the population of densities, the people per kilometer in 2019. You want to get it, and it will show it later on. That is and left and right side is the population density. Is the same way, but we have it's the same data, but we have different way to visualize the data. And also we have circle charts, we have line chart, and for example, it's like the pie chart. We use to visualize like the unemployment and underemployment rates people in Vietnam the last time. And we also have another way to visualize the data. For example, it's like how can I say, it's like spiders. This is a spider map. We also use it to visualize the data in employee working in by two criteria: is gender and regions. Yeah, and it's the same way we also this for rural and urban too. And we also compare the data by gender and male and female and in general, and we group on like the whole country and the data based on like the area. I was using Power BI to do that. Yeah. And it is the way to visualize the data. I mean, the qualitative data. I use NVivo and here it also NVivo too, and sometimes I use say LRTI to visualize the data. You know, for the qualitative, it's not number like the quantitative. The data from the sentence. Yeah, what is sentence saying, and we put the data based on the thematic ways and we can use the word scouts and to formulate what is the keyword for that sentence. And normally that data is from some social method, research method like in-depth interview and observation. And here you can see the left the left charts. We can see like the data we analyze from literature is we can use NVivo to do that. And last one, I would like to share my screen for, let's see. Okay, can you see my screens? Okay.
We can only see your PowerPoint.
Okay, here. Yes, it's not PowerPoint. Can you see my screen now?
Yes.
Yes, it's the LRTIs for analyze and visualize the data. For the qualitative one, it's the one sentence it's the interview sentence I did before, and after that you put every data or of the data here, the data from the sentence, the data from the pictures, the data from the signature, something like that, and you cut in based on like the codes here. For example, we have in KC process, KC understand, something like that. And if I want to export that data, I will see here, you can see where is, and I will put some like thematics, something here, and after that, I can analyze the data. Okay, yeah, list of content. Yeah, it takes several seconds. Yeah. Yeah, you can see this is all of data I get from the interview based on where is the KC process. In terms of another software for analyze the data, you can see is the Power BI. Yeah, the Power BI is really familiar. This is the same, I think. This is the same Excel software. It's organized by on the system, something like that. Yeah, you can see. Yeah, the data you put there is based. The data you can import and export from Excel file and SCV here, and after that you also put on. You choose the way to analyze, to visualize the data here. You can have like the bar chart. We have the column chart. We have bar chart, and we have a color chart, something like that. And you just put the data and give the data to the table, to the chart. And after that, you can copy and export that data to like your report. You can copy here and give to your report. Okay. Okay, that is all my things I would like to share to all of you. If you have any question and any comment, you can give to my email on screen. Thank you very much for your having me today, and this is really happy to share with all of you my thinking now. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Juan, for your amazing presentation. Data visualization is also very important because to make data more interesting, more presentable, and more understandable to the audience we want to target with. So thank you very much. And the next session is a panel. So it will be facilitated by Floribert. So I would like to present Floribert. The floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you very much. So in this mini panel session, I just have a few general questions for the four presenters to respond to. And in the next session, we'll have a Q&A session, which will be facilitated by Sophia, and then that will be open for the participants to ask specific questions to the presenters. So my first question to all four presenters is, while implementing your research method, what were some of the limitations or obstacles you encountered and maybe even found frustrating? And how did you overcome them? Who would like to start us off? Go ahead, Dea.
Yeah, so I would just like to tell, like, mainly, like, most of my work and my methodology itself needs everything on internet. That's it. So you get your data and you process it, you write your scripts or something, and then you get your outputs. But also one of the important part is the ground validation. So that is very much dependent on you going into field, and since you do everything spatially, so you can't have all your sampling done in a clustered small area. You need to have a big collection of samples, and they need to be collected over a large area. So that is some kind of limitation. I would say it is more of a logistical limitations sometimes when you are doing your research, if it is with the funding itself or maybe with the time limitations, because you can't cover all the areas. So you need to prioritize, and sometimes you just miss some important locations where you need to get the ground validation. So yeah, that's from my side.
Thank you. Anyone else? Pimonpon, go ahead.
Okay, from my difficulties that I have found during using like the Facebook advertisement, since this method has been being used like popularly like at the current moment. So I have to study for it a lot and to make sure that it's credible and it can be used for my research, and my research can be published to the journal article, right? So it's take a lot of time to study for it. And another one, okay, maybe how to solve that. Okay, so it's just simply just understand more, and perhaps if you have anyone who have expertise over Facebook and research, because it's like kind of mixed, right? Because if you talk to the marketing people, they will recommend differently. But if you talk to researchers, so you need to take like recommendation from both and then be able to integrate and adapt your research toward that to make it successful. And the other one is might be sort of going along with one of the question of how I attract more participants to click to my link. This one, at first, I also have difficulties because I posted and not many participants want to fill my questionnaires. So basically, I have been trying to put like reward, like Starbucks gift card, for example, like, so then this can attract more, and then you put like don't just put the text, but like a visual aspect as well, figures, and to gain more eyes attention. And but by putting like reward, people might thought that okay, it's my subject to some bias because people might favor the answer to you. So you have to ensure that in the questionnaire you explicitly state that the question is not relating, that don't give you any higher chance to win the prize or something like that. Yeah.
And just a quick follow-up to that, when attracting more people, when you find that to attract more people to participate in your surveys, does it also attract more bots or fake accounts?
I think in my case, I didn't really have a lot of fake account because as a research, my questionnaire is really long. So I think like when I think they kind of, they don't want to like go through all that process. And since in the questionnaire, they have to explicitly answer, and sometimes I have like a short answer or long answer as well that they have to plug in. So, but still I got a feel very bad quality of the questionnaire, and that is like you have to step in and screen out at the before you analyze the data.
Thank you, Pimonpon. A lot of people I know have questions about the ethical considerations, but I'll leave that to the next session, for the Q&A session for Sophia to handle. What about Charlotte? What's your experience about limitations and obstacles for your research method?
So I think the limitation would be similar to any other sort of field work involved research. Like the researcher should be willing to be a bit flexible and enter environments that they might not be, comfortable to enter. So I think in our cases there was some discrepancy in the data based on, I think, the comfort levels. Also, it can, your gender can also kind of determine how comfortable you feel in very like specific context. So that kind of consideration should be there. But I think the researcher, like one of the, like Natakon that I was talking about in my presentation, even though initially he was kind of hesitant to enter the environments which he thought was really disgusting or dirty, he sees a lot of like, dirt and cockroaches and rats and things like that. So it's definitely not an easy environment, right, to for him to adapt. I think he would be a better person to answer what kind of difficulties he faced. But I'm just like speaking for him now that, you should be flexible. And I think at the end of it, we made sure he was fine to do it. And I think he also enjoyed the process, thankfully.
Thank you, Charlotte. What about you, Kwang?
Okay, thank you for your sharing. To be honest, when I conduct my research, I faced a lot of challenges. Yeah, because my research topics focus on the organization in Thailand, and I am Vietnamese, and my target group is either, the research population is the Thai people. It's not like Vietnam. Yeah, the first limitation is my language barrier. I can communicate. I cannot communicate fluently in Thai language. Yeah, it's just really basic one. And my research conducts based on the mixed methods approach. I'm using the qualitative and quantitative methods. For the qualities, I use in-depth interview. And at that time, like I try to connect with more than 100 the top leader from each NGO. You know how many respondents from me? Only one people. Yeah, because I'm using the English one, and the people refers English Thai language. Yeah, and my strategy is here when I give the invitation letter, I use the bilingual language. That means English and Thai. Yeah, and after that, I have a lot of respondents for how to invite the people to join my interview session. And another one is the quantitative. Yeah, I need to list my questionnaire survey for more than 200. The organization is whole of Thailand. Yeah, it's not Isan, it's not Bangkok, whole of Thailand. Yeah, and it's my challenge is how can I get the contact number and contact email from that organization. I keep in touch with a lot of professors from Chulalongkorn University. They have one strategy for me. I need to select this one research assistant and research volunteers who these people can help me to communicate in Thai language in order to deliver my survey too. And another challenge is when you analyze and visualize the data, you should be think about how do you validate your data. And right now, there are many techniques to validate your data. For example, it's very hard to validate qualitative data. Qualitative data, qualitative research is big challenge is the bias from the researcher. Yeah, the bias, the idea from researcher. When you transcribe the scripts from your interview, it's a lot of bias from researcher. So my strongly recommend here, you should have like you should have like the holistic research protocol to like what are the step to visualize to validate the data, and you should got like the ethics the ethics certificate from university how to eliminate that barrier. Yeah, I try my best to answer all of your questions. Thank you.
Thank you, Quang. My second question is, given that we are now living in a new normal COVID-19 period, do you see your research method as being affected by this situation? And if you think that it's not affected, why not? And how confident are you that it will remain unaffected? Or on the other hand, if you think it's affected, why is it affected? And how do you adapt to it? Charlotte, do you want to start us off?
Sure. So with COVID, I mean, it's a bit tricky for me to answer this question because if I had to do this kind of research method now with COVID, it would probably not get approved by the ethics committee, and it's irresponsible to do it, right? So I think the way to adapt would be to find a way. I mean, with online spaces, I think takes a bit longer to establish that kind of rapport and trust. So maybe have like subsequent sessions of interviews, but I still think this is definitely challenging to use like the method that I particularly spoke about. But I still think like having this idea of trying to understand people's use of space is also important for COVID, right? Because it has really changed the way we use space and trying to understand mobilities and immobilities. So I think the principles still very much relevant, but the way we would employ it might be different. For instance, the transect walk can still be done in kind of COVID kind of circumstances. So I still think, yeah, it is relevant, but needs some modifications.
Thank you, Charlotte. Yeah, what do you think for your research?
Yeah, so most of it is still unaffected by the COVID itself, because all the data that we are collecting is from above the ground itself. So it's in space, so it's still not affected by COVID. So the data itself is still available. So all the infrastructure is there. So it's comparatively much unaffected, but only like I mentioned previously, like the data validation or the ground validation, which is an essential part, is hampered by the COVID itself. Like you can't have that much of movement just to go and collect the data or collect the points. So just
and this is something that you've observed already, right? That in terms of data collection, it's not as much as pre-COVID.
Yes, exactly. So like you can have all your outputs ready, but you need one step. The last step is the validation, whether the outputs are correct or not, which is totally dependent on you or someone going it and validating it on the ground after seeing it. So yeah.
Thank you. Quang, what about your thoughts on this?
Yes, it's in my experience when I did my data collection during COVID-19 last year in Thailand. Yeah, I remember that like when I was to travel back in Thailand is around last year in March, and after after a few weeks, the Thailand is locked down, all of the country like closed. Yeah, and you know, unfortunately, at that time I have really good confirms from the interviewees. They already confirmed that they agree with me to have the in-depth interview. But when whole of Thailand is locked down, they told me that, oh no, welcome to come to the office to have the interview, something like that. But you know, for the COVID-19 come to us, they bring also like the challenge, but sometimes they also bring the like opportunity. Yeah, you know, it's quite expensive when I travel from Khon Kaen to Bangkok to Chiang Mai, and sometimes it's Nong Khai to collecting data and to have only one meeting with another people. But it's quite interesting when COVID-19 and can conduct the interview throughout online tool. It's like Zoom or like the Google Meeting, something like that. It's quite interesting. And after that, I ensure that from now I can conduct my data collection based on qualitative. I can do it online. Yeah.
Thank you, Quang. And Pimonporn?
Okay, in my case, I think like Facebook advertisement is more like a solution for the COVID-19. It might not be applicable to every types of research, but at least is suitable for some. And I think it might gain more popularity because who knows like how long will COVID last. And I agree that people will not be able to postpone the deadline forever. So eventually I think we have to find a way to get the data. And within this method is like it's safe for both like participant and the researcher, and it can be fast and it can be like integrated from the answer from many different countries. Though there are some limitations at the current moment, but if we can see like the rate of innovation and development of technology, in the future, it might close down some of that gap as well. So I think we have to see.
Thank you, Pimonporn. Okay, so looking to the future, do you see your research method, which is relatively new and innovative, becoming part of the conventional methodology in your field of research? DA, do you wanna start off? Go ahead.
Yeah. So these days, especially post-COVID, I would say the cloud-based technologies have picked up a lot. And we see a lot of applications, especially in the water sector, related to using geospatial technology, especially using the cloud-based platforms, which lets people just sit in their home and work on the laptops and just do large-scale processing and just get the output. So like people are getting more aware, more familiar, and so with the technology itself. So this is helping out in further penetration of these technologies within the sector itself. And we hope like in maybe few years itself, it will be the conventional usage of technology. Yeah.
Thank you, DA. But how about you, Kwang? What do you think?
I think in the future, it's like the research method innovation will be come to very soon. Yeah, for example, in social science right now, like the researcher would like to change how to collect the data. For example, the Facebook ads is the one tool to collect the data when Pimonporn sharing before. Yeah, it's like quite interesting tool. I think it's not the long future. In the short future, the people think about how they are changing the way to collect the data and to do the research. Based on my anticipation, like I mean, in the short future, people prefer using like digital technology to collecting data rather than another tool. Yeah.
Thank you, Kwang. What about you, Pimonporn? What do you think?
Okay, I think first I have to admit that the method that I use is not innovative enough, because I just like switch from traditional survey to like disseminate it online. Just the platform that I use. But actually, if I speak like as a social media as a whole, not just like Facebook advertisement, there are a lot of potentialities. For example, like because they have like a big database, I have read some research that they also try to leverage this big data and do coding, and also to work on like illegal trafficking as to identify using like what's it called, the natural language processors, I guess, and also like from the picture processing, and also it can be studied about like people movement, because currently a lot of people when they go somewhere they usually like check in on their like social media, and in that case you can detect those people as well. But I think currently it's also beyond my capacity, but there are also some study that has been launched about this. If like anyone interested, like feel free to like check it out.
Thank you, Pimonporn. And how about you, Charlotte?
So I come from an urban studies background, and I think the very core of having urban studies approach or a human geography approach, or even more in other fields of social sciences, is that they recognize that space is important in like shaping people's experiences. So I would say it's already fairly established, and I only see that this emphasis is even increased in the coming years. And I think all of us right now, even like working from home, would agree that with these ideas that, if you're immobile, it also affects your experience. So of course these are linked, right? So yeah, definitely I think the principles will gain further importance, and maybe we can even see a way in which, these other like quantitative data collection methods actually somehow find a way of incorporating these principles. For instance, it's not just about movement of people, it's also about movement of objects. So for instance, if you're tracking the movement of plastic waste, how can you do it? So yeah.
Thank you, Charlotte. And my last question, what would be your advice to other researchers who might be interested in adopting your methodology into their own research? Kwang, do you mind sharing some of your advice?
In order to give some advice for the people to conduct the research, I think it's depend. It's your research topic. Okay, you should be because they have like criteria to select the method. It's not select the method by yourself. Yeah, you should be identify the criteria. For example, you are conducting like the qualitative research. What are the methods referred to? And we have like the matrix selection. Yeah, you put everything there, and after that you can have the final decision for that. And for me, I would say that it's based on like your topic and what is your strength for that method. For example, the people really good for the mathematics, they try to refer for qualitative one. And on the other hand, like people really want to do like the social sciences and anthropology, and I like anthropology, something like that. People would like to do like the qualitative one. Like it depends, but for me, it should be from your topic. Yeah.
Thank you, Kwang. What about you, Day? Any advice from you?
Yeah, so first of all, like never be intimidated by new innovative methods. It may look very difficult at the start, but usually when you start with your own case study or your own application, you start breaking it out into small steps. It's easy to adapt to it. And usually it's very rewarding whenever you learn something new. And most of the times with anything that is new, there is always a very small community that is attached with it, which are working on that thing, and they are always ready to help each other. So just keep that in your mind and just go ahead. That's it.
Thank you, Day. What about Charlotte? Any advice for us?
So I think I touched upon this in my slide also, that it should come from your also Kwang mentioned it should be designed with the purpose in mind. Also, maybe sometimes a survey does its job. You don't have to be innovative. I mean, so it should come from the research design. I think that's the key advice I would give.
Thank you, Charlotte. And lastly, Pimonporn.
Okay. I think like my recommendation would be a bit similar to DA. So like, don't be afraid to try on new things. But before that, you have to learn about it, like the potential and limitations. And you have to also be adaptive to new things like fastly, because like if you like clingy to all the very traditional methods and not study for the like the new one, maybe like in the future with this fast-paced going world, by the time you have the result, it might be already invalid. So yes, for me.
Thank you, Pimonporn. Thank you to all
Sorry, I have one thing to add in for that. Yeah. This is our advice, but the one important thing is when we work and when we do for project, we have our supervisor and our professor. Yeah, I think they are really experienced people to give like very strong recommendation how and what the method should be. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, Kwang. Okay, thank you to all four presenters for sharing your experiences and thoughts during this mini panel discussion. I think I'll move it on to give the mic to Sophia for the next session on the Q&A session, where we open up for participants to ask their questions specifically to the presenters. Go ahead, Sophia.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, yeah, thank you so much for your talk. Very insightful, interesting discussion, panel discussion. For the sake of time, I guess we will just skip the Q&A and just go through the most interesting questions that we got from the chat box. So I will just synthesize a little bit. We've seen a lot of interest in the data privacy, protection, and ownership of data from the listeners, and I guess it's mostly related to Charlotte and Pui, if you guys would like to address this kind of concerns and how it addresses your method in particular. Yeah.
So I think, yeah, the question was about like how did we get ethical review for doing this method, and I think, yeah, ethical review is also like mandatory for all SCI projects. So we got through the Thammasat University Ethics Review Board for this particular project, and the way we did it was for every method we had to list the complications that would arise in this situation for the participant. And for walk along specifically, we mentioned very strongly that we would establish previous contact, and we would only do it if the participant is comfortable and feels safe to do it. So we did the survey first, so that then we could gauge interest for doing the walk along. So that's how we went about selecting our participants. So I think really emphasizing about the informed consent aspect of your ethics review. And also in this case, because we are also dealing with a very difficult population, in the sense that they're all very much vulnerable and often living in chronic poverty conditions, like I stated earlier. So we also thought it was appropriate to compensate them in kind. So that is also something that you could think about in your research if you're taking time of your, like a sufficient amount of time of your participants. And if you think that you can budget in for that, we gave them protection equipments, because even outside of COVID, they were in need of those protection equipments.
Sorry. Okay. So on my end, like, as Charlotte has suggested, that okay, even though it's online, you might have to go through all those ethical review from the board, or if you are a student, it should be like the board of your university. And for another concern of data privacy, for my method is a bit similar to the traditional one of just like asking the people to fill out your survey. So you will also need the consent form. So, but when it's come to online, the consent form can be like, okay, before they start doing the fill out the questionnaires, you can just say that, okay, this research is for what purpose, and the data will be kept like anonymous, and it will only use for this purpose only. And you also need to like put your names, your contact, personal contact, to make sure that they can reach out to you as well. And then you can like ask them whether they agree or not agree. And on the other one, like I was suggested from my advisor during that time that I should have the screening questions. For example, like one first question could be like, are you younger than 18? So to make sure that I don't get myself into trouble later on. Because if you asking like people like the younger group, like the vulnerable group, you might need a spatial ethical review, which might be like delay your research. So if they are younger than 18, they will go to like final page of thank you, okay, for your participant, something like that. Yes. I'm not sure, should I be like answering another question of the algorithm concern at the moment?
Yes, if you feel like it, I think yes, we can squeeze it in. Yes.
Okay, so I was reading through, like, there's one comments that I think is very interesting, because I also got that one before about like the concern that we don't fully understand the algorithm of like Facebook and how like randomized it is. Is it like really random, or is it like bias selection? Yes, the only way that I could solve this problem to make it like as closest to the real population is that I post-statify my result from Facebook with the real statistics provided by like Ministry of blah, blah, blah. So for example, my research was trying to conduct on the tourist in specific area. And then when I got the result, I was stratified it based on the age of each group, based on the tourism statistic from Ministry of Tourism and Sport of Thailand. So to make sure that all the age group are representative. Yeah, that is one way that I was using.
Okay, good. Thank you so much, everyone. I guess we can wrap this session up for the final remarks.
Okay, so thank you very much, everyone. And I really learned a lot, and I hope everyone also learned a lot from all the panelists. And it's interesting that today we have all of the method together, both from quantitative, qualitative, and mix-up. So for the first presentation by Charlotte, it's really from qualitative method. And one thing I really enjoy from this method is really like the trust building relationship between the researcher and the participant. And it's for the case study or for the storytelling story, this really has a very high impact and very powerful story to tell about. And for the quantitative methodology, it's from Kim and Jay that I think in this situation of the COVID is really useful. And also it's deal with the very big data, and we don't need to make the interview face to face, and we can collect the data easily and very cheap and very convenient. So that's the very good point from the Facebook ad as the tool for data collection and as well as the GIS. And one thing from GIS that I feel is quite impactful, that's for the policymaker to really get involved in different sectors, like in the Department of the Agriculture or Department of the Natural Resource Management. They really can work together in the same data, but with a different layer. So I see that it has a very visual and high impact for the policy making process. And the last one from Juan is really interesting that you make both of quantitative and qualitative together. I know that it's maybe for some researcher, they interested in quantitative, or they focus on quantitative, they just do it alone. But to make it together and make both of the data visual, interesting, and core relevant, so it's very, I think it's a good method, and researcher, maybe even young people can make use of that, and to make it more visualized, that is really impactful representation, both for the paper or for presentation, PowerPoint presentation. So thank you very much, and I hope that is useful for everyone. And of course, depending on research question, depending on the project aim or different method choose for the research or the scale of the project, different people and different researchers choose different methods. But I hope that with all the knowledge we have, we learned today, we both can use own flexible, and I'm sure that you can do it, and with a little more practice to apply in your own personal project. So I hope that it really have a very long-term impact from the today's discussion. Thank you very much for everyone to very active in participating, and for participants from everywhere, from many countries. That some of them I know that professional like teacher or researcher and have some experience, but they still want to learn from young researcher, from new methods, and I thank you very much for that. Yeah.